Welcome to Get Paid for Your Pad, the definitive show on Airbnb hosting, featuring the best advice on how to maximize profits from your Airbnb listing, as well as real-life experiences from Airbnb hosts all over the world. Welcome. We are your hosts, Josefa Kapadia and Jasper Rivers.
Get paid for your pad. 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 Get paid for your pad.
Welcome to podcast 251 of Get Paid for Your Pad. Today I have two guests and we're going to be talking all about luggage, because you're probably aware that often guests, they want to leave their luggage after they check out if they have a late flight, or sometimes they want to drop off their luggage early. And how do you deal with that as an Airbnb host? Do you allow them to do that? Or when it interferes with your check-in and check-out schedule, do you provide them with an alternative solution? That's going to be the topic of today's podcast. And I have two very special guests on the podcast that can talk about this. First of all, we have Nico Georgantes, the co-founder of Knock Knock City, a service that actually provides a solution for this very issue of luggage. And then we have Brendan McKenzie, the founder of Metro Butler, New York's leading short-term rental PMC. And PMC stands for Property Management Company. Now, you may have heard Brendan before. He was on episode 139 when we talked about Airbnb regulations in New York. That came out in March 2017, so it's been almost a year and a half. So I want to start off with Brendan. Brendan, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. What's going on, man? We talked a year and a half ago. I know a lot has been going on in New York, especially in regulation-wise. There's always news items coming out with Airbnb suing the city and the city suing Airbnb and politicians getting involved. And, there's a lot of money going around. The hotel industry is trying to bribe the politicians. Airbnb is throwing money around. Like it sounds like it's a bit of a mess. It's a bit of a jungle. Like what's going on? Can you shine a little bit of light on the situation in New York?
Sure, yeah. Every day seems to be a new adventure around here. When we last spoke, we were discussing state level laws there were a few bills up in committee, and they ultimately died. One of them made it through the advertising bill. That was a couple years back and had minimal effects. And what the city and state realized is they wanted stronger enforcement mechanisms to go after Airbnb hosts. Now, a lot of these politicians are taking in lots of money and, lobbyist influence from the Hotel Trades Commission, which is, the hotel lobbying arm in New York. And so what happened is about 2 weeks ago, New York City Council passed a law that goes into effect about 6 months from now. It's in February. And the idea is that Airbnb and platforms like it will have to turn over to the Mayor's Office of Special Enforcement data on all the Airbnb hosts. So the city can then identify and say, look, who's Airbnb-ing? And, by and large, most Airbnb hosts are in violation of the multiple dwelling law. So if the city has that data, they can go dispatch enforcement officers and fine the heck out of everybody in New York. And what the operative effect that may have is eliminating at least half of the Airbnb listings in all of New York. So that's not good for Airbnb hosts in New York. That's not good for a lot of average New Yorkers. That's certainly not good for folks like us. Thankfully, Airbnb launched a lawsuit against New York City 2 days ago to combat that bill. They're arguing that it's unconstitutional. So we're going to see how this one plays out.
All right, we're going to have to stay up to date on that one, because that sounds pretty drastic. Half of the Airbnb hosts in New York will get fined. That's pretty intense.
Yeah.
Awesome. Nico, how are you doing, man? Welcome to the show.
Hi, Jasper. Thank you for having me.
So you're the co-founder of Knock Knock City, and when I first heard about Knock Knock City, I was like quite surprised. I was like, wow, because there's so many startups popping up in the Airbnb space, and some of them are offering a solution that's really creative that I never really thought about, and that's what Knock Knock City does. Do you want to explain what your service is all about?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I want to add to what you were saying before that Knock Knock City came off of a pain point that me and my co-founder Celine Sonmes came across. So one day we went to an Airbnb in Philadelphia, and after checking out, we had nowhere to store our bags for a few hours until our flight. And we had two options. One was either drag them around the city all day and let it be a burden on our shoulders. The other one was leave it with an Airbnb host. However, we quickly found out that some other guests were coming right after us, so we couldn't store it inside the host. Therefore, the last option was to store them on the empty hallway of the brownstone building where everybody had access to. And guess what? That's the one we took. After storing them there, we went and explored the city, but having the stress and that bad experience, we really didn't enjoy much. So a few weeks later, we were discussing this idea of how can we have convenient places for travelers like us and everybody else to store their luggage in the city. And we thought that what if we take advantage and what if we leverage the empty space of local shops who have some extra space to store those bags and luggage for a few hours and make some passive revenue while increasing the foot traffic that the online industry is taking away from.
Awesome. So can you describe the service from the perspective of the Airbnb guest? So let's say I'm staying at an Airbnb and the host requests me to check out by, let's say, 11 a.m. and I'm not able to leave my luggage at the Airbnb. So how would I go about finding one of those shops that you mentioned?
You would go to our website called www.knockknock.city, where you will see, so far we're in 3 cities, New York, San Francisco, and Boston. And you will find a map with more than 60 locations where you can just sign up, then select the number of bags you want to drop off, time and date, and then just click book. And you will receive via email the exact address and name of store to drop out.
And so Airbnb hosts, they can sign up for the service and then they can send their guests to these locations?
Yes, so we have two types of Airbnb hosts promoting the service. One is through their checkout emails. The other one is through word of mouth. Really easy, it's really quick to use. Just click on a location and then select how many items you have, what time you want to store it, and there you go.
Okay, awesome. So let's talk a little bit about what are the options as a host, because I've hosted quite a lot of guests, and oftentimes they arrive earlier than the check-in time, and a lot of times they also leave after the checkout time. So my checkout and check-in times always used to be 3 p.m. for check-in and then 12 p.m. for checkout. And if I had back-to-back reservations, that would give my cleaning lady, that would give her 3 hours to clean the apartment, which was always enough. But then sometimes, people who are arriving, they want to leave their luggage before the other guests check out. So then it's kind of a burden on the other guests to have them, store their luggage when the other guests are still there. So I didn't really like that option. And then, the other way around, if people want to leave their luggage, but then the new guests check in, then they're checking into an apartment that has like a bunch of, luggage, a bunch of suitcases that belong to strangers, which also is not I don't think that's a very good way to start the hosting experience for the guests. When you arrive in an apartment and there's a bunch of suitcases and you're like, wait, like whose are these suitcases? And then as a host, you're like, oh, these are the previous guests. They're leaving later, so they'll be here in an hour to pick up their shit. And you'll be like, okay, well, I don't really want like random people coming into the apartment. I've rented this myself. Like it should belong to me now, and no one should be coming over really. So there's a little bit of friction there. And so what I used to do is the only option that I had in Amsterdam was basically to send people to the central train station where there's lockers. But it's it's a bit of a hassle. It's kind of far away, and also it's fairly expensive. So I can totally see that there's there is a bit of an issue where on the one hand, as a host, you want to provide the best service as possible to your guests, but sometimes that interferes with the guest experience of the other guests, either the previous or the next group. And so, sometimes you just can't accommodate all the requests. And then the question is like, how do you provide the best alternative? And that's where you come in, Nico. Now I want to ask Brendan, because one of the reasons that I got Brendan on the podcast as well is because he actually uses Knock Knock City for his business. So do you want to quickly describe what Metro Butler does, Brendan?
Yeah, sure. So we work with primarily owner occupants, but we have a pretty broad cross section. They're people who actually live in their apartments in New York and will travel 2 weeks out of every month, or they have a pied-à-terre, or they'll go away for 3 months. And we manage the entire logistics process, everything incident to short-term rentals. So effectively, these are people who, in sort of grossly oversimplified terms, want to turn their home into a pop-up hotel to monetize it while they're not using it. And so the way Knock Knock has really saved us and come into play is, as we scaled, when we crossed the mark of like our first couple hundred listings, we found that especially in busy season, which happens to be right now, August is a particularly busy month for us. We would find the guests would say, hey, listen, my flight lands at 8 a.m. Can I come to the apartment? Or they wouldn't tell us and they would just show up. Or we would deny them. We'd have our receptionist say, hey, listen, unfortunately, we have another person checking out and we have to clean the apartment and turn it over, But we didn't really have anywhere to send them, anything to give them, any way to make them feel comfortable, to sort of delight them and give them a positive guest experience. And that's sort of where Knock Knock City came in and really saved us in a big way. We were able to build into our automated messages, sort of these little tags where we would say, hey, thanks so much for booking with us. We're delighted to have you stay. Your check-in time and check-in date are such and such. By the way, if your flight arrives early, we recommend Knock Knock City. You can store your bags for only $2 an hour at plenty of locations, coffee shops, wherever you might want to spend your day before check-in. Or if you want to drop your bags right near the apartment, great. And we do the same thing at checkout. We build it into our automated messages. So the night before checkout, an email or a message goes out, depending on the channel. And it says, we really enjoyed having you stay. It was a real pleasure. As a reminder, tomorrow's your checkout date. If you have a later flight or aren't leaving the city until a few hours after checkout, once again, we recommend Knock Knock. Go to this link and you can pull up your phone will show you the location to drop your bags nearest to you. Or if you want to select a different location nearest to where you're going to spend your day, great. And ever since we implemented that, we've had little, I would say almost no, I can't think of, frankly, I can't off the top of my head think of a single instance where a guest has said, oh, I'm not doing that. I expect to be able to leave my bags. We just preempted them. And it's been really great in that regard.
And I imagine there's quite a few locations where you can store, right? Because if you arrive in Brooklyn and then you go on the website and it advises you to store your luggage near Central Park or something, like it's kind of undoable.
100%. Convenience is one of our top priorities. We have hosts near the busiest and most touristic places, such as we have a lot of locations near Penn Station, Grand Central, Central Park, Williamsburg, Dumbo, and I can name a dozen more. But yeah, and we're scaling at a very rapid rate. So we want to be on every other block in Brooklyn, Manhattan, and every city that we're expanding to.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that's frankly been nice for us, and one of the reasons I am such a strong advocate, from the outside here, and why I'm glad you had me on, is because I will say this. Nico, Celine, their whole team has been very receptive to our needs. So I'll give you a great example. As we've scaled into different neighborhoods and outside of New York, a perfect example is we started servicing a boutique hotel. It was a 9-room boutique luxury hotel, and they didn't have a conventional front desk or conventional luggage storage. They hired us because we're obviously subject matter experts. We know how to push to multiple listing channels like Airbnb, HomeAway, Booking.com. And these are things that were outside of their conventional skill set. But you figure if people are spending the kind of money that they would spend to stay in a luxury boutique hotel, only to find that there is no physical front desk or conventional luggage storage or those types of amenities, they want all of those things. And we couldn't offer it to them because, frankly, look, we're a service provider. It wasn't our hotel. And when we reached out to the team at Knock Knock, we said, listen, we have a lot of guests. They really want hotel-like conventional services. Will you help us out? You know, there is demand here. Are you able to set up locations near there? And within about a week, we were up and running, and all of a sudden we had luggage storage. So it's that sort of model. You know, it's technology focused. It's web app based, so they can reach out to local vendors like coffee shops and breakfast places that will benefit from the foot traffic, that would love that, to say suddenly all these people want to come and patronize your location. All you have to do is hold their bags and you'll make a little bit of money in the process. Will you do it? Knowing that the team at Knock Knock is receptive and that it's easy to scale in places that we need gives us peace of mind to scale to locations where, this sort of service would really help us out.
So if you're an Airbnb host and you have a little extra space, can you sign up to be like a storage location for Knock Knock City?
That's how we started, Jasper. So at first we had a couple of people, usually freelancers or Airbnb hosts, wanting to sign up on the platform. However, we recently found out that their hours of operation are not stable. Like, for example, they may go like a lunch with some friends may happen out of nowhere, or they may have to go to a meeting in the city. So we decided to get local shops on board to store bags instead, where they have stable hours of operation. And we know even a week before that they're going to be open on a certain date, because lots of our guests are booking luggage storage 30 days before or even 2 weeks before the actual date. And it's great to give them a peace of mind that the time that they're going to book is actually a time available for storage and not waste their time.
Right. So from the host perspective, it's mostly an additional service that you're able to offer to your guests, and you don't have to actually put any work into it. Like, you guys basically take care of it.
Yes, absolutely, exactly. It's I would say it's almost like a tool that makes luggage storage not an extra step, but part of the overall local experience of being a local in a city.
So let's talk about the different options. I'm sure there's people who are listening to this podcast and they're thinking, well, should I offer my guests the service for free? Should I allow them to leave their luggage at the apartment later if I can accommodate them? Or if people arrive early, should I provide them that option? What I used to do is I usually try to accommodate the request from the guest unless it just didn't fit with the cleaning schedule. And so what are your guys' thoughts on that? Like, let's start with Brendan. Brendan, what do you think?
Sure. So I've actually used the service, and I have a couple of friends in New York who also Airbnb, and there's sort of a mix of opinions here. Me personally, unless the guest asks well in advance, I find that a guest leaving luggage can be a little tricky because you've already scheduled the cleaners are coming, or the bags in the way. Me personally, I would err on the sides of always encouraging them to use it. Where I think things get a little tricky there is a lot of people are trying to do this custom branded, very personalized hospitality thing where, are you eroding that where if suddenly you say to a guest, hey, you got to go spend $2 an hour to store your bags elsewhere. It was nice having you, but you can't stay here past checkout. So I get that sensitivity. At the same time, I think there are good ways to spin it. And this is where I've seen some of my other friends really succeed. Now, I've got one friend who actually pays for the luggage storage service on behalf of his guests. He'll say, listen, I can't have you stay, but let me cover that, because it might only be $6, and that might be the difference between a 4-star and a 5-star review for that host. So it's sort of a value add. Like that $6 goes a lot longer for that host. What he does is he's big on supporting local businesses, and he's got his sort of favorite coffee shop. And I think that's his way of sort of delivering that memorable guest experience of saying, look, I'm going to use Knock Knock City every time. I'm always going to send them to my favorite coffee shop for a couple reasons. One, because I know they're going to like it, or I think they're going to like it because it's a great coffee shop and they serve breakfast and small plates for lunch and things like that. And I'd like to have them go out on a positive note with good memories of my place. And the other thing is, he's friends with the guys at the coffee shop. So he can say, look, I want to support local businesses. This place might not otherwise benefit from that foot traffic because it's, maybe 2 blocks from his house, and it might not be the first place they think of going. So to that end, I do kind of see both sides, but my mind, I sort of err on the side of, look, this is a positive almost any way you cut it.
I really like your point, because I remember now one of the reasons that I didn't really like when guests would show up early to drop off their luggage is that they would see the place uncleaned. And I always think it's very important, the first impression. Like if you arrive somewhere and the apartment's not cleaned yet, and even though it makes sense because you arrive early, even just seeing like a dirty apartment, I feel like it kind of like messes up your experience a little bit.
Yep, that's the problem with first impressions. You only get to make them once.
Exactly. So that was always kind of like the thought that I would have when people would show up and leave their luggage. On the one hand, I want to accommodate their request, but on the other hand, I don't really want them to see the apartment unless it's perfect, right? And so I really like this your chain of thought where you're saying, you know what, if you arrive at 8 a.m. in the morning, why not go to this awesome coffee shop? My friend owns it. He makes an awesome breakfast, and you can store your luggage there and explore the city before check-in. And then if you really want to go the extra mile, you tell him, and I'll cover the expenses for you. He charges $2 an hour. I'll cover that for you, right? I mean, to me, that sounds like a really awesome hospitality service.
Definitely, Jasper. And to back what you're saying, not only they're offering them a place to store their bags, but also a way to start spending their day before they haven't even checked in.
Absolutely. And you're also, like Brandon said, you're also helping and supporting the local businesses, which is also important. If you look at the general picture of the whole discussion, whether Airbnb is good or bad for neighborhoods, supporting local businesses is one of the biggest advantages for the neighborhood, right? When it comes to Airbnb hosting.
Mm-hmm. And for us, just to go back very briefly to the property management side, we're always trying to quantify almost everything we do. And you figure if we have a family staying in a townhouse in Brooklyn, for example, and spending, easily, some of these places can go for $1,000 a night. And for us, let's say we cater that family, say it's a family of 4 and they're spending $1,000 a night. It's a very nominal cost for us to deliver that sort of outstanding experience where they say, oh no, we forgot to ask. We didn't realize checkout was at such and such a time until now. Can we leave our bags? And if we can't accommodate them, we can do an analysis as a property management company. It's very easy for us to look at it and say, look, if we pay for their luggage storage, it might cost us $40. And then they might write us a glowing Google review or Facebook review or want to come back and stay again and make us considerably more money than that nominal cost of just storing their bags for that short little period of time. So I think it cuts both ways. It's good, I think, both for individual hosts and for companies in sort of the same model.
Right. And what would be the average sort of cost for people to store that luggage? Like, let's say you have like an average group of like 2 to 4 people. They all have like one bag and they want to store it for 3 hours. Like, what would that cost?
So the rate is $2 per hour per bag. So one bag for 3 hours would be $6 or $12 for the whole day. And every single one of our locations have different hours of operation. So some of them may close at midnight, but it's still going to be either $12 per day or $2 per hour until those hours are closed.
Right. So if you have 4 people and everyone has one bag, and what about like a small bag, like a little backpack or something? Does that count?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can store anything from backpack, shopping bag to luggage. And in the near future, we're also looking to introduce other items as well.
Right. But if you have like, let's say you have like a big luggage bag, right? And then you have like one small little backpack on the side, like, do you have to pay for both?
Yes. So they're both going to be $2 per hour each. So let's say, I'll give you an example. Let's say you have one luggage and one backpack. It would be $2 per hour per bag, which is going to be $4 per hour.
Right. So then I would just put my little bag in the big bag.
Yes, exactly. We've had many people do that. So that's a way to save up.
Makes sense. All right. So let's say you have four guests, and let's say they have 1.5 bags on average. So it's like 6 bags for like 2 hours. That'd be 6 times 2 times 2 is $24. So it's that's sort of like $20 to $30, like a typical kind of fee for let's say 4 people. Exactly.
Our average booking is $20.
Right. Okay. Just to give hosts an idea, like if they do want to offer the service, like what is it going to cost them, right? So it makes sense for, like Brandon said, if you have a high end Airbnb and you're making like $300-400 a night, then like if it's a 4-day booking and you're making like $1,500-1,600, then that $20 or $30 is going to be a very small little cost to you, right? Where I totally agree with what Brendan said. I can totally see how that could change a 4-star review into a 5-star review for sure. Awesome. Is there anything, Nico, that you want to share with listeners? Let's say there's people who are interested in using the service. Like, where can they go? What's the sign up process? How does it work?
Absolutely. So you would go to our website called www.knockknock.city. When you do that, you will see our homepage where you will type in your address that you want to store your bags at. And then that will give you results of different locations that you could store it at. You select one. You choose how many bags you want to store, what time you want to drop off, and just click book. When you click book and it's confirmed, you will receive an email with a booking code, which you show to the shop that you book to store your bags. And they will scan it and check you in. And you will receive another a pickup code in that case, where when you're ready to pick up your bags, you would just go back, show it to the host, and they would scan the pickup code, and you're good to go.
Awesome. And are there any other best practices that we haven't discussed yet? Because I can definitely see how it could be a little bit of a sensitive subject, like Brendan said, you don't really want to tell your guest, okay, this is checkout, goodbye, and take all your stuff with you. What are some other ways to like sort of best practices, and how do you communicate this best with your guests?
So the best way you can communicate this with a guest, I guess, is either included in your house manual, or you can contact us at Nico, Niko, at knockknock.city. And we can send you some promotional materials, like flyers to put in your house, or plastic stands that would probably even eliminate you having to recommend this service to your guests. The promotional products would do it for you.
Oh, that's a good idea, actually. Yeah, I like that. Brendan, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, so we've actually used some of these. Nico was kind enough to send us some refrigerator magnets, and we find that that's generally where we provide Wi-Fi information. Yes, it's online. Yes, it's in our automated messages, but people like that sort of physical, that like something that they can touch and hold and feel. So we will usually post Wi-Fi information on refrigerators, and our clients are usually comfortable with that. So if we put the luggage storage refrigerator magnets right there, it's sort of very subtly alerting them to the fact right at check-in, hey, not only here's the Wi-Fi, but checkout time is firm. Here's where you can store your bag. We've already reminded you via message. In case you forgot, it's right here. Just go to knockknock.city and you're all set. So yeah, it's been a real positive for us.
Sweet. And Nico, you said you're currently in New York, San Francisco, and Boston, was it right?
Yes.
Awesome. So currently New York, San Francisco, and Boston, but looking to expand to more cities in the future. And if you do want this service to be available, just keep sending Nico emails. Just send them like 10 a day, and that will probably that will encourage him to get it set up. Brendan, for people who are in New York and who want to use Metro Butler, like what's the deal? Where can they go? What are the costs and etc.?
Yeah, so we're actually expanding outside of New York now as well. Just head over to metrobutler.com. It's metrobutler. You can also email support@metrobutler.com with any questions you may have. And one of our customer success managers will be more than happy to reach out to you, get you any information that you need that you might not otherwise find on our website or FAQs, even set up a call if you want. Our pricing for our full service model is commission based. So we only make money when you do. Our commission is 25% of the gross booking revenue. And, we kind of do everything soup to nuts. We'll help you build your listing, build your profile, do multi-channel listing. So get you on Airbnb, HomeAway, VRBO, Booking.com, manage all guest communications. I mean, basically you name it, we do it. So, again, metrobutler.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys. Any final remarks before we close up this podcast?
Yeah, and one of the most important ones, I feel like. So we have a promo going on, a discount code for Airbnb guests. The code is knockknock, KNOCK, KNOCK. When you type in that discount code during checking out, when you're checking out your bags, it will give you the first hour free.
Awesome. That is very great. Well, thank you guys so much for your time. Hopefully we'll get you guys back on the podcast in the future. And to the listeners, thanks for listening. And of course, next Wednesday, there will be another episode of Get Paid for Your Pad. Don't forget, also on Monday, 10:30 a.m., I do live broadcasts on Facebook and YouTube. And if you want me to answer any questions, just send me an email and I will discuss your question live on Facebook or YouTube. And of course, you can go to getpaidforyourpad.com to find the show notes of this episode with all the links, all the information, all the goodies, everything you need to know. So thanks for listening and hope to see you next Wednesday and Monday, of course. Bye-bye.
Get paid for your pad. 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 Get paid for your pad.